So we just finished our circuit series, and if you haven't been paying attention, I've been streaming, and along with Eggman, our Stage Zero circuit series, locals, whatever you want to call it, every week for the last 4 or 5 weeks. This last week was our top 16 single elimination bout, and we're going to take a look at all the deck lists. And if you ever want to basically, I don't know, participate, go ahead and join on Discord and watch out for our announcements for our next one, which I'm sure we're going to be doing. But all these players who are in this top 16 have been playing every single week to accrue points in their wins and things like that. And usually Egg would do this, but he put it on his website and just asked me to do it because, well, it does have the channel's name in the tournament, so it makes sense. But shout out to him, thank you for that. And before we get into the list, we will be, me and Egg, will be at Peoria, which is Illinois, the in-person regionals this weekend. So you'll probably see some variations of these lists as well, but definitely come say hi. And definitely follow the links, the Twitch link in the description below, mine as well as Hayden's, Eggman's, in order to follow and just watch the stream together. So that way I run the stream and commentate, he commentates, we're gonna have some fun. Again, this is on the Eggman's website, so it is Eggman Events if you haven't already checked it out. Again, he usually does this, but he has definitely done a good job to put this all out. But as far as the top 16 breakdown for the single elimination event, it is the top 16 leaders here were 5 Newgates, 2 Emporios, 2 Flamingos, 2 Smoker, 2 Kinemon, Magellan, Kaido, and Kid, which honestly, this makes a lot of sense. No Zoro though. Still no Zoro. In the last like 2 weeks, we've actually seen no Zoro in our circuit, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? I think people are just leaning towards Newgate and just not playing Zoro. Like our first circuit series, that first week, I think Zoro won that one. So it's actually interesting to see it develop, but I think we're starting to understand that Newgate is just that much better, being a 6K leader, and as well as just being a little overtuned for all the cards and things that go with it. And speaking of, this is Yomi's list, which is probably Hayden's list maybe, or her list and his changes, or vice versa, who knows. But I would imagine based on this, it's pretty standard, right? We have the four of the best 1-drops that you can play in red right now. The 2Ks, the 2K lineup, Vista at 4, some people that play at 3 as well, and probably one of the best removals as far as blockers go. A lot of the time, like the 1-cost blockers, and some even the 2-cost, and just removal in general. The TP Luffy, the vanilla lineup, which I don't think she plays the 5-drop. I think if you are going second, probably you're going to be playing one of these vanillas almost every single time. Otherwise, there's just going to be counter in your hand. And then the 5-drop Luffy at 4, which again makes sense for a lot of these decks nowadays, where it just either ends games or is just really good on curve on turn 3, I suppose, if you're going first. 2 of the aces, which is pretty standard. 4 of the 9-drop, which why not? You're gonna want to see it when you need to see it, and it's just a really good card. Make your leader to 8-cost or 8K for an entire turn and a half, basically, which is 2 turns. For Radical Beam, we had a discussion on stream to see if Radical Beam was the issue in the defense of this deck, but really, honestly, in my opinion, guard point's really good too. It's only a 3K compared to the 4K. So I mean, even if you get rid of Radical Beam, I'm sure there's gonna be another 1-cost here or there in red that's gonna help you. And honestly, you can just double up on the 2Ks, like just double up on 2Ks, like who cares? But yeah, I do agree that Radical Beam is super good, considering that you're going to be at 2 or less life at all times. Overall, very standard list, and yeah, she did great. Next up is Daniel. I'm not much of a Emporio player, but from what I can see, what I can tell, a lot of the lower cost curve just ends up being like play your searchers and buggy, play your scryers in Doflamingo, and then play your blockers. So that way you get to the 7-cost to play out the Luffy, and then you start swinging with that. Mihawk at 2 and 1 Don Flamingo. Don't really see that too often anymore, but hey, they have some lasting power since set 1. But Mihawk is really good with 2 of the Brickfist. I'm not even gonna try that one. To return one character or 4 less in your hand, which you can return one of these guys. I mean, you can swing with a Mihawk and then return it back for a 2 cost. It's probably, or a 2k counter. It's probably more effective than Doflamingo, but I think this is just good removal effect on your turn anyway. Then we have the two new Kamaland, right? New Kamaland. Pretty standard overall. It's a very interesting deck. It's a strong deck when you perfect it, and I think it just takes some time in order to get it right and don't make mistakes, basically. All right, got another Newgate in Steven Bragg, who did win one of our weeks, I believe, with Newgate. I think the only major changes, other than the alternate art discrepancies here, is Jozu. I think Jozu, and as well as Kingdu. Jozu, just for another rush card. It is a 4/5 most likely when you add that extra Dawn. It is also a 2k counter, so even if you aren't using that 4 cost to attack one more time, it's going to be a 2k counter pretty easily more often than not. And then we also have Kingdu, which is interesting because I think what's happening here is that you play 4 of for these guys. These guys are obviously cheaper, and I think what Whitebeard does is just presents you big boys like this, and as well as the 7 and 10s over here, and tell your opponent like, hey, I'm a 6k leader. These guys are 6, 7, and 10k, right? Just deal with it, right? It's gonna be super hard. That's what you want to do as a Whitebeard player, in my opinion. And then these are also depending on curve. So going first, you're gonna be playing the Kingdu. Then going second, it's probably gonna be the Frankie, and it probably changes if you're gonna be going into the Whitebeard mirror, which ended up being our finals. Next up is Lucas with Doflamingo. I'm not much of a, again, blue player in general. I did play a little bit of Doflamingo when it first came out. I really like him. It's just you're just swinging for 7 every single turn and playing stuff for really cheap, as in 1. The Scryers in Doflamingo and as well as Piora are really cool because it takes a lot of skill and as well as planning to get it right. The new card over here with Boa, and I think that's pretty much it. These guys are the new vanillas as well, which I don't think you really had really good vanillas. You had the 5/7 in Doflamingo last set, but these guys are again on curve, depending, going second, and I think blue does want to go second if I had to take a guess. And then again, the Boa Hancock, new girl on the block, I think is just in order to play from your leader effect, and you get to draw and trash a card in hand, which makes sense because if you're looking at the top 5, top 3, whatever it may be, you want to get through those top 5 or top 5 as fast as possible, basically. Then we have the Desespada and as well as Level Up Beam, and then only 2 Mihawks. I always feel like when I play against a blue player who plays Mihawk, they have like 4 in hands, but yeah, that's 2 of them right there. Pretty cool. Next up is Bruce. Bruce played Kid, and I really like Kid. I haven't really gone away from it, and this list seems pretty cool in the way that he's still playing the 5-drop Yamato. I think that's a very personal preference for Kid players. You either play it or you don't, and it's really cool because you just play it out for 5, and you basically stare at your opponent like, hey, this is going to be a menace the entire time it's here, so do something about it. And I think in a format where basically Zoro and as well as Whitebeard, which is the most prominent decks for red, that's not Luffy, right, are not playing Jet Pistol, so you can't really easily get around it. Otherwise you just have to swing with your vanillas instead, and against any other, I guess blue can get rid of it as well pretty easily, or at least have options to, right? But overall I think Kid's still really good. You still have the new card here. Probably not going to be playing this card. You just have another 2k counter. The new Yamato is going to be really good in a lot of different situations to control the board. 6 or less covers a lot, and I'm sure everyone knows that. Only 1 Basil, which I think kind of fell off. I mean, it makes kind of sense, you know. I don't know. I think Basil is still really good. I think it just kind of takes care of your vanilla problem against Whitebeard. Against Smoker, it probably dies a little too quickly, I guess, especially into the later turns. So I can see the understanding, or at least understand why you wouldn't be playing as many Basils. And we did see on stream that I think the last card in his hand, which I don't think made a difference, was a Basil. So kind of a bummer to play one of and only have that in hand to not counter with. 2 of the 7 costs, which is pretty standard. 3 of the Kid, pretty standard. Some people play 4. Only 2 of the Law, really good card. But again, I think it's a preference. We saw in Miami with Duvall winning with 4 Laws, and I think he really expressed that, like, it's a really good card. You play your Kikus and Rizos for free, and you return stuff that you don't that you really want back in your hand, like your Bonnies and as well as your Momos at 4. But I think, again, it's preference. Same thing with Punk Gibson. I think Punk Gibson is really cool, but very situational. When I played it, it was just like, I feel like I would rather play the Restand, the Paradise Waterfall. I feel like sometimes it's just a lot easier to play it, especially if you have the 7 or the Law out, that type of thing, right? But that's just me. Speaking of why we don't really see Kid too often, or not too often, as often anymore, I personally still think that dual attack is really good on your leader. But what about having dual attack on a character card that plays something for free? Whoa, that's crazy. No surprise that Kinemon is still doing really well. And with this list by Jonathan, he ended up playing a pretty standard list as well. I don't think there's anything too crazy as far as these ratios go for the Yamatos as well. Really valuing that with one of the Punk Gibson as well as Paradise Waterfall. It makes sense. I do like people including the 7 cost Kid at 3 here, well, at least for his list, but also including the extra egg. I think people, at least for me, from what I've seen, maybe I haven't seen as many lists as Eggman, but some people do opt out of the extra egg. But that does pop a good amount of things, like in black, in red, and in the mirror, right? Next up is Gabriel Mason. So he is playing Whitebeard, which has pretty similar ratios to the others. He is playing 2 of the 3 cost Zoro. Don't really see that too often. I would imagine that he wants to attack more often or more early or earlier than not, right? I think it makes it an easy target though. I think that's the only issue. Your leader is the harder target, so you may as well just play things that are on parity to the leader. So all these 6Ks and as well as a 7 down here. A little bit different for the ratios. Marco here, which is also a blocker. You get to basically have it die and then come back basically in Whitebeard. It's always going to have happen that way. 2 of the Ace for the new gate. 4 of the Raggle Beam, 2 of the guard point. I'm surprised that not really surprised actually. This is all pretty standard. Smoker, we just talked about Smoker a little bit, right? We have a lot of the, this is why you play black cards, right? I think what's a little bit different, which I don't think it's in his list. I think it's actually in the other list, was the 5-drop Garp. That was also very interesting. This one is not playing that. This is looks like it's playing for consistency with Sakazuki at 4, which covers a lot. 5 or less covers a lot. That covers all the vanillas that we were talking about before. Covers a lot of, like, without the effects of the minus effects, right? Borsalito is still really good as a really annoying blocker. We're playing 8 event cards, which is pretty hefty if I had to take a guess. Great Eruption, don't really see that too often, at least for me. There's an activate main that you draw 1 and you -2 of your opponents. I actually kind of like that card. That's pretty cool. Volcano is a 2 cost that pops something 1 or less. Obviously, Kuzan makes that a lot easier when everything is -5. Or if you use something like Suru or Tashigi, but most of the time these guys are 2 costs. You don't really, or 2k counters in hand. You don't really want to use them, but it is what it is. Kobe is Kobe. You gotta do that one. And then Impact Wave at 4. I mean, it's just really good. I think Impact Wave is one of the best event cards that you can play right now. Obviously, it's just in black, right? You have to play black, but 4k for 2, but also pop something with 3 or less is really good. It's like a Pump Gibson, but actually does something. And the trigger effect is also super annoying. But overall, again, looks like he went for consistency. The Smoker at 5, the started X Smoker 5 costs is also interesting to see. It has that nice little permanent that it can't be KO'd, and having double attack, you put 9 on it. It is a wrap. That was Trey Robertson, and this is Grayson's Kaido. Like to see Kaido here have they have the film support, the film deck, and the 2 costs, and as well as the Uta. This is just 2k counter along with the minus Dawn, and you get to play the card, which is cool. This is a 2/3. You get to put 2 Dawn on it. Now it's an attacker, right? But really, you just play it for the 2k. And I think any purple player, Kaido player, whatever it may be, probably wants as many 2ks in your hand as you can. Plus, it just has an additional effect, which is nice. 3 Broncho Bomber, 4 of the Hell Judgment, and 3 Blast Breath. My man is trying not to die, but it makes sense in a Whitebeard format, Zoro format. Kinemon just swinging for you twice. It just makes sense to play this many and for Hell's Judgment. So hey, kudos to him to give Kaido a shot again. I think it's still a really good a really good deck when it sees everything. The 2 Kings are really good. The 10 drop Kaido at 4, it's kind of tough, but hey, if it worked out, it worked out. And honestly, like, it is tough to get rid of, again, the Vanillas in Zoro, the Kuzans in black, the Mihawks, the 7 costs in blue, right? This kind of resets everything if you're playing it right, which I would imagine you're playing all these event cards to not die early on, right? So yeah, pretty cool list. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. All right, we got Kevin's Kinemon. So we do play the Nico at 2. We have 4 in the Emoto, not surprising. 4 of the 8 drop again, not surprising. Pumpkinson is the event of choice. 3 of the killers, some people play 4. 4 of the Tokis, you're almost always gonna get the Yamoto out, or the 8 drop Kuzan to have that active as a blocker. Only 2 Raizo, which is not that bad. I think more often than not, you're gonna be playing Ukiku instead, from the leader effect or from the 8 cost. And yeah, overall, pretty cool. 3 X-Drake. That's my boy right there. That is my homie now. But yeah. Well, also 4 Bonnie. Yeah, there's not, can't really say too much about this. This is kind of what we saw already. Kind of what we saw. Now, Ridge's list, again, really came up to the point of playing a couple of different things, right? The helmet, I'm not even gonna try it. The 2 cost, give one of your opponent's characters -3 cost in this turn. I think you probably combine that with something like Monkey D. Garp, right? Monkey D. Garp or Kobe, right? You get rid of something that is a 6 cost or less, and now you have 2 bodies on board that can probably swing later on. The Monkey D. Garp really is great pretty much with anything in this deck, right? With the Kuzan minusing 5, with the Sasori minusing 2, it doesn't really matter. You get to trash a card, rest this character on play. You can just play it for 5 and then immediately do the effect. I think with this guy being out longer and longer, like it is crazy. Like it becomes kind of out of hand, and you should not sleep on it. Basically, it's just gonna keep removing every single thing out of a cost of a hand, and that's not that big of a deal because most of these cards end up doing that anyway. So you probably plan for that. 4 of the Great Eruption, the card that I was talking about before, and then 4 of the Impact Wave, both really good cards, which makes sense now. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the light. All right, the last of top 8, which is going to be Aerith. He is the Doflamingo who got top 8. And looking through this list, actually got some cool changes here. We got the set 2 on play. Look at the top 3 and then return them. And when attacking, you get to trash 1 and place one of your opponent's cards, 1 or less, to the bottom of the deck. So gets around the blocker. Don't really do too much for this. I think what it probably does best is getting rid of Bonnie's, Momo's, Nami's, etc. Right? If you're gonna be ending up doing this, which I mean, you're gonna be scrying and setting up for your leader effect anyway. So I think this makes sense to play it at 2 to get us every so often. The Bohang Hawk at 4, no surprise there. Kuma, Marshall D. Teach, all very annoying cards. The TP or the promo Jinbei, whatever you want to call it, at 2. Surprisingly playing at 2, but I guess 3 or less is really doesn't really cover that much nowadays, right? I think that's the thought. 3 Mihawks, which I think is the right ratio. 2 of the Doflamingo, which is less of the ratio. We are playing the Pacifistas at 4/6. I think that is just your your vanilla slot, right? I think that's just your vanilla slot. These guys are, I was gonna say searchable, but you can obviously play this guy for using Doflamingo's effect, since he is a 4 or less and just paying 1 instead. So the gecko comes out. He's a weird looking person thing, whatever fish. I just comment below to tell me what that is. Mr. Chew Pond Clay from set 2. We've seen this guy already, I believe. And being able to make sense in order to trash the card and then return a card to their hand, or to their bottom of the deck, sorry. And the 2 level up beam. Oh, kind of surprised on that one. We've seen 4 pretty much in every other blue deck, or at least Doflamingo deck. So I want to hear the thought process behind that, because I think there were some cuts being made. Like, you probably cut 2 of these and then added 2 of the Flamingos or Pacifistas, right? So I don't know if that was a flex spot or something that he was just trying out. All right, going to the top 4, we got Dakota's Emporios. He actually won our last week's week, I guess, tournament. There you go, circuit tournament. And it's probably this list, honestly. 4 ofs of everything. He comes from Yu-Gi-Oh! He's a well-known Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, which we found out, right? So it makes sense to just max out and play sets of everything. There's nothing new here, honestly. Nothing new here that we haven't seen. 5-7 here, just make it super consistent all over the board. And then 3 of the common line, 3 on the Mihawk, just not going overboard on things that you don't need. So yeah, super makes sense. Very simple, very straightforward. He played it really well, and I think it comes down to the skill level, and as well as just having the expertise of the deck and matchup knowledge. I think that's really what it comes out to as well. Next in our top 4 is Magellan. So we have whose Magellan is this? This is Christopher's Magellan's. And Magellan's really cool. I played it a little bit when Hayden was here for, I forget which event, but it was cool. That was one of the first times I was playing it, and as I watch it more and more in tournament, it makes sense that it is a kind of a sleeper deck, or at least one that people should really start fine tuning and start understanding the text for it. You know, understanding the ratios for these guys, but playing 4/4 here in order to ramp it, as well as threaten full dual attack, or at least for this blocker here. It's just like this deck says, basically, if you do anything to my cards, I'm going to do something bad to you, right? I think, you know, and it really rewards you for being a little more aggressive, just a tiny bit more aggressive for the -1 dot effects, which is probably why people kind of might lean towards this instead of Kaido, being tired of Kaido just playing defense all the time and having a top end. This is more of like being more flexible and being able to play the Magellans out and just laughing at your opponent, because you're just gonna be down and out of curve the entire time. 4 queens is still really good. A 6k blocker that draws you 2 is just nuts. And then same thing for this guy, which I don't really see him played very much. I always see it in Magellan's lists, whatever you want to say it, but I never see him played in tournament. But I could be wrong. Maybe someone can tell me about that. Hell's Regiment definitely carrying the defensive side of this deck. 4 of the Kings, surprising, but not really. More or less does cover a good amount. Again, in black and blue. I don't know about red, but still, it really depends on what you're going against. And then 2 of the Brocco Bombers, and then 2 of the 9-drop Kaidos. I love to see this guy come out and just clear the board and swing for 10. Yeah, that's pretty cool. This deck's cool. Last 2 with Diego's Whitebeard. I hate to say it, both of these next 2 decks are kind of the same, right? There's not too much difference, just the ratios for vanillas, and as well as the 2 Marcos, which we did see earlier on in the previous list, along with Nuno. So he actually won the event. This is a pretty much exact mirror. I think the only 2 differences probably is the vanillas. Like I said, he isn't playing guard point, which is interesting. I think he probably values more of seeing the ace more often than not, in order to minus 2 things 3k, which is just nuts, and getting rush. But yeah, overall 2 very consistent decks, very, I wouldn't say impressive, but definitely overtuned. I think there's a couple of things that I might need to look at a little bit, or maybe even introduce something in set 3 to balance these guys out. Congratulations to Nuno, and as well as everybody who played. I'm very happy to host those events on my Discord, as well as Hayden/Eggman helping me out the entire way, and me helping him out. He did a lot of the best goals pairing stuff, and as well as the organization. So it was definitely a team effort. So hopefully we can have some more in the future. We'll see you guys in Illinois. If we don't, I'm sure we'll see you in a different event as well. But that's all I got. I'll see you in the next one.